Paul Vallas is here. You know, I feel like, Mr. Vallas, there's some vindication in this Tribune op-ed, which may or may not matter to you at this point. But the op-ed essentially, covers what you've been saying for years.
Oh, absolutely. It's, it's at the end of the day, it seems like the CTU is running the city, doesn't it?
No. Yeah, very much so.
Maybe.
Yeah, and it's a concern. It's obviously a concern.
Yeah.
It should be, because they want is no-fault government. Let's look at the schools for a second. They don't want to hold schools accountable for academic performance anymore. They gave 100% of the teachers passing grades when it came to their teacher evaluations, and they got to get rid of standardized testing. They promoted 84%, or they graduated 84% of their students last year, yet only 1 in 4 are reading at national norms and 1 in 6 are computing at national norms. Well, they want to bring that same lack of accountability and standards to the city, and you see it in the mayor's response to virtually everything. People point out correctly that the mayor has been slow in responding during the first 100 days to various crises. Well, he defines slow as a derogatory term, and he plays the race card, claiming that they're stereotyping.
And the Tribune called him out on that. The Tribune said mayors get criticized. It has nothing to do with race.
Absolutely. They talk about his relationship with Stacy Davis Gates, who really is dominating that administration. And you can ask anybody who knows government, both inside and outside. And yet he says, what are you saying? That basically because he's a black mayor, he can't make decisions on his own. I mean, Harold Washington would turn over in his grave if he heard a mayor making those type of comments.
Right.
So clearly, this is like no-fault government, no accountability government. You can't criticize us, and if you do criticize us, they're going to go on the attack rather than stepping back and contemplating for a moment that perhaps they need to be acting more aggressively to address the issues that need to be addressed, and they need to be doing it in a way that really builds kind of bipartisanship.
Look, there's only 2 lanes to travel in that, and that is that Brandon Johnson is playing a game, a political game, which amounts to you ask somebody, how long has it been since you beat your wife? It's a question that creates defense on the part of the questioner who is just looking for an answer to the question. Or, more frighteningly, that Brandon Johnson believes every question that comes at him is racist, and that's a whole different level of trouble.
Well, look, during the course of the campaign, whenever I would ask a question, whenever I ask a legitimate question, he would come back consistently saying, Paul, when are you going to believe a black man when he tells you something that he might be telling the truth? And that was his response consistently. And he was called out by a number of the black candidates running during the election when he would use that even in response to questions that were not, and issues were not coming back, that were not coming by me. But clearly, this latest example of the hypocrisy with not just Stacy Davis Gates, but all the union leaders and many of their members have found a way to either enroll their kids in private schools or to find a way to get their kids into the select enrollment magnet schools and avoid the neighborhood schools altogether. A study was done a number of years ago that said 40% of the teachers do not send their kids to parochial schools in Chicago. So, there has consistently been a double standard. When 40% of your members and all of your leadership are either sending their kids to private schools or they're finding a way to get their kids into magnet schools and select enrollment schools, that's not a vote of confidence for the system that they've left to the rest of us. And I'm not disparaging any parent who is seeking the best education for their child. Just don't work overtime to deny it for families who don't have the means or the clout.
Yeah, and the other thing, Paul Vallas, that strikes me is all of this could be handled if you don't go with the previous mayor's playbook of the minute you question me, it's a fist fight. And if the mayor would simply stand up and say, I want a healthy relationship with the teachers union, but my job is to take care of the citizens of this city. and their children and make sure the kids get a proper education first over the union or anybody else's concerns. He hasn't said anything close to that.
Well, one would hope that when you assume a position of leadership, because history is filled with individuals who come to office and were underestimated, and they kind of rise to the occasion because they're now in that executive position. They're now the ones making that decision. They are, at least for 4 years, not directly beholden to anyone, not if your goal is to do the job and just not to kind of perpetuate your political existence, and without being willing to make the type of tough political sacrifices that need to be made to make the right decisions. Look, the Chicago Public Schools spend $30,000 per student. The increase per pupil since 2019, you've seen a 40% increase in what they're spending per pupil. They're consuming almost 60% of all the property taxes, and they get a fourth of all the money that's allocated by on the part of the federal government and the state comes to the Chicago Public Schools. Yet they're crying poor. Yet they're claiming that their local neighborhood schools are inadequate because they don't have enough financial resources. They're inadequate because the union blocks any changes at the local school level that brings about real accountability. And in the process, they systematically call people who are advocating for school choice, who are advocating for a lifting of the cap on public charter schools, or for that matter, the expansion of the scholarship program for poor parents. They're calling them fascists and racists who want to deny black children an education. Those are Stacy Davis Gates' words, not my words. So at the end of the day, it's the ultimate hypocrisy, and I think the city is not better off because of it.
Yeah, news directors around the city and editors around the city need to train their young reporters that when you're accused of being a racist, you stand up for your profession and for your ethics, and you deny the racism, and you continue to ask the question. You don't allow that game to put you in some sort of corner where you don't get answers to anything, and you walk off, and the mayor walks off. It just doesn't work that way. Look, people are on to this game, and thanks to you to continue to talk about it, people will continue to be onto it, so please don't stop that. I know you're writing in a lot of places, talking in a lot of places, and people can keep up with you on social media, but just Google Paul Vallas and follow Paul Vallas because he cares about what happens to this city and the kids in this city, and he has dealt with schools at a level that the rest of us haven't. So it shouldn't be this hard, Paul Vallas, but I'm glad you're out there talking about it.
Well, thanks so much for having me, and have a great day.
All right, see you later. Thanks. Just have to take a deep breath every time I talk to him.
I know.
And remember, 38% of the city showed up to vote.
Right.